What is up, everybody, and welcome to Celtics Talk Weekly Postgame Live. I'm your host, Seamus Zarlingo, a.k.a. Celtics Every Day. Alongside of me here, Justin Lowe, miraculously, a.k.a. at Celtics Rising. Tonight, Justin, we won't get into the details of everything that went on in Massachusetts this evening, but we will get to a lot of it, and a lot of it is the Celtics winning 145-113 over the Houston Rockets on the Garden floor tonight. The Celtics really needed this win coming off of what was not a great performance by any stretch of the manner whatsoever in Milwaukee. The Celtics get it done on their home floor tonight. And Justin, let's hear your initial thoughts on tonight's Celtics blowout victory against Ime Udoka, mind you, and the Houston Rockets.
Yeah, so we talked about this in the pregame show earlier on this evening. It was the fact that the Celtics absolutely could not follow up last Monday's performance with a loss here tonight in the way that they when did we play them? What day is it? I think today's Saturday. When did we play? Wednesday or whenever we played
Thursday we played.
Oh,
the Bucks,
Thursday. Okay, that's
Wednesday
what I meant. The carbon monoxide must be getting in my head.
You guys see the effects and why it's so dangerous.
But listen, the Celtics simply could not follow up that Milwaukee game with a dud here against the Houston Rockets. Absolutely not, especially that starting five. They got benched, didn't play the second half. They come out here and all five of the Celtics starting five finished with 11 or more points. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown continuing their excellence. 32 from Jaylen Brown, 27 from Jason Tatum before being ejected late in the second half. Honestly, probably going to sit for the majority of the game after his ejection anyway, regardless, with the score getting so out of hand anyway. But Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum were exquisite. Kristaps Porzingis looked phenomenal on both ends of the floor tonight. Derek White doing what Derek White does. Drew Holiday, who is my X factor tonight in the pregame show, he had a stellar performance after really stinking it up in his homecoming in Milwaukee. Peyton Pritchard, your X factor. Al Horford looked phenomenal tonight. It was just a really good Celtics win, Seamus. And this is exactly what you wanted to see the Celtics do, right? So it's all about how good teams respond, right? That's how we, I guess, separate good teams from great teams. Is how does a great team respond after a tough loss? How do they go about it? Do they let it affect them? Do they let it kind of carry over and they come out sluggish? Not really. That's not what happened tonight. You saw a little punch by Houston. I think they led, it was 20-15, and then Boston went on a 10-0 run in that first quarter, and that really opened up the game for the Celtics, and they ran away with this one late in that second half as well, Seamus.
The Celtics, this one from early on looked like it could be a slugfest. Yeah. It really did. It went back and forth. We were on the pregame show for about the first 6 minutes of the game. Yeah. Everybody go check that out as well. We did a pregame show tonight, Celtics Rockets pregame. So not only Celtics Rockets postgame tonight, but Celtics Rockets pregame we did before this game. We did the first 6 minutes of the game as well. And during that time, the Celtics, when we logged off of here, the last score update I gave was 18-14. Well, the Celtics after that, I believe, went on I can't define the run exactly numerically, but it was something of like a 10-4 run. And from that point on, the Celtics really took hold of this game. And you see it in tonight's lead tracker up on the screen right now, if it'll pop up on me here. There we go. The lead tracker might have popped up sooner than I saw. But the Houston Rockets, 6-point lead there in the first quarter. Definitely looked like the Celtics were going to have some trouble on their hands tonight. But I mentioned before the show, Justin, that I don't necessarily look at – oh, no, I didn't even mention on the pregame show. I think this was in one of our meetings that the score to me at the beginning of games, the Celtics do win a lot of games outright, wire to wire, but the score doesn't necessarily matter to me as much as how the Celtics are playing. Are they finding open shots? Are they getting after it defensively? Intensity, energy, are they bringing it to the floor? Are they getting in passing lanes, causing deflections? Are they making it tough? on guys on the perimeter, and are they driving aggressively to the rim offensively? And the Celtics, I thought, against the Rockets tonight, although they went down 6 in this game, I thought it was very competitive, very physical early. And you could tell the Celtics, they had some rest under their legs. They didn't have to really play at all the other night in Milwaukee. The starters, a lot of them, they barely played 15 minutes, 15 to 17 minutes, and they were out of the game. Only a half worth of minutes the other night. And you could tell with the legs out on the floor at the start of the game that the Celtics were definitely more spry than the other night. And it showed when Houston, coming into the building today on the second night of a back-to-back, as we went further on into this game, Houston just wasn't able to put forth any effort the Celtics put forth, which was tremendous effort in hitting the 3 ball, making plays in transition, making things extremely tough for the Houston Rockets in general in this game. But looking at the lead tracker tonight, what stands out, Justin, to you about this particular game flow?
See that third quarter, Seamus, where the lead tracker keeps going down and down and down and down towards a 40-point advantage for the Celtics. That, to me, is what sticks out about this lead tracker. Because, again, we mentioned it in the pregame show. We've mentioned it for the entirety of the 39 games so far this season. Third quarters have been putrid, and the Celtics had a huge opportunity at the half. They had Houston right where they wanted them. They were up 11 at the half, right? And I think usually teams on a second night of a back-to-back will get, they'll be working on adrenaline in the first half. And then in the second half, they go into the locker room. Their legs start to get tired. They get comfortable, a little bit relaxed. And then that's when the Celtics really put the dagger in their hearts. And I think that was really important. And I think that was a message at the half. I think the players knew the position that they were in. I think they knew the opportunity that they had with the Rockets on a second night of a back-to-back. And I think they took, every advantage possible. And the Celtics really came out in that third quarter. And I think they started off on a 7-0 run, and they were getting steals, and Jaylen Brown was dunking the ball, and Jaylen Brown had 21 of Boston's 43. The Celtics put up 43 third quarter points. That's what stuck out to me on the lead tracker, Seamus, that third quarter, and how that lead just kept trending and trending upward.
Yes, and behind the scenes here, I want to mention something about tonight's down below the ticker. I'm trying to edit it on the side. We thankfully, Justin, I don't know what just happened on the show, but Justin, I don't know if you even know if you just flew the plane completely solo, because I tried to fix the ticker because the Houston Rockets shot 40 of 99 tonight. Okay, folks, before the post game, the stats said 40 of 100, and they took a shot away from the Houston Rockets, probably the last shot of the game. I want to say, I don't know exactly. I don't think they took a shot at the end of the game, actually, but so they did shoot 40 of 99 tonight for 40.4%. On our ticker down below, it'll say 40 of 100. I tried to fix it, and Restream was like, nope, see you later, bro, see ya. And while that graphic was on, Justin, you were totally alone in here. You were totally alone. So nice for good for flying the plane, very solo. But in this game for the Celtics against the Rockets, I really did expect a little bit more from the Rockets. Now, I know they were on the second night of a back-to-back. Now, that's a perfect example of the other night we saw in Milwaukee. The Boston Celtics were absolutely obliterated on the second night of a back-to-back after a game where they had to play the entire game down the stretch, come back from multiple points down, and, of course, play overtime against one of the best teams in the entire NBA. Well, the Rockets, they play one of the worst teams in the entire NBA, but knowing this Rockets team, how bad they are on the road, they, of course, could not exactly get a foothold in that game whatsoever throughout most of it. And the Pistons, we were actually talking last night. We were going, are the Pistons really going to beat the Rockets? Are the Rockets going to lose to the Pistons right before they come into the Garden? And most of the game, it looked like the Pistons were in, like, you can't really say, the Pistons, for the most part, is a 5-point lead, 2-point lead, somewhere around there. Couldn't say definitively that the Pistons were going to pull that game out, but they certainly had the advantage down the stretch, had the chance. Rockets have to play that game all the way through. They come into to the Garden tonight, and it's just a slugfest. The Celtics hit 24 3-pointers, and it's one of those nights where you look at the Celtics and go, that is why they shoot a ton of threes, because if they make that amount, which to me, you're not going to make this many threes every single night. You're just simply not. It's an average, or sorry, not an average. It's a data point that is way down the bell curve right here. That's on one of the more impressive performances for the Celtics all season, will be all season, hitting 24 3-pointers and shooting overall from the three-point land 51%, 51.1%. That is outrageous from three when you take 47. And I do think it does symbolize some of the Rockets' tired legs tonight and them playing a back-to-back, because it's harder to contest shots. It's harder to get out to the perimeter and really be active with your hands and feet, with your base, guarding guys, not letting guys go around you, and of course, getting out there and just simply contesting open shots. So I think the Rockets tonight, you saw that effect with how many threes the Celtics were able to make and how many threes were wide open. But a player who was hitting his 3-point shots tonight in the midst of really a stretch where he's not a 3-point shooter like primarily anymore. We've seen his game be a little up and down, but Jaylen Brown is our player of the game tonight. Jaylen Brown, absolutely phenomenal in his homecoming to the Garden along with the rest of the team. 32 points tonight, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks as well. 11 of 15 from the floor. And like I said, he was hitting his threes, and he's a player that doesn't take too many threes, only 4 of 6 tonight. And Jaylen Brown, his ratio of shots, not too many shots on the night at all, only 15, yet a 30-point performance. Also came away. Now, this stat line, didn't put it on the graphic here, but this one maybe not so impressive, but 6 of 10 from the free throw line tonight for Jaylen Brown. Definitely want to see him hit more of his free throws, but 6 free throws on the night, you go to the line 10 times. At least we saw the opportunity for Jaylen Brown arise. And Justin, we've seen Jaylen Brown ascend to new heights over the past month and a half, and tonight's game was only another performance to add to Jaylen Brown's repertoire. And I want to know your thoughts on Jaylen Brown's performance against his former coach. First time ever going against a former head coach in the NBA for Jaylen Brown and the Houston Rockets.
So, unfortunately, there's an emergency going on in my apartment to where I have to evacuate. But before I go, Jaylen Brown tonight played with that FU mentality that I just got blown out by the Milwaukee Bucks on national television, and I got benched for an entire second half. Him and Jason Tatum had that mentality tonight. So didn't the other starters. But Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown just played on another level tonight that I just don't think I've seen them play at in a while. And when I say that, I mean how efficient they were tonight. They weren't just chucking up shots. They weren't just dribbling into defenders, losing the ball, playing willy-nilly. They were playing with purpose. And when they play with purpose, they're unbeatable and they're unguardable, and the Celtics will win by 30 every single time. This is not a knock on anybody, but it is. Dylan Brooks, you got absolutely exposed by Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown tonight. There was no answers for Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown tonight. The only thing I wish was that Jason Tatum didn't get ejected tonight, because I understand that the game was pretty much over. I know he was probably going to end up on the bench anyway, but that would have really just kind of been a perfect night, as if Jason Tatum didn't get ejected. But I mean, I talked about this in the pregame show. This was one of my, what does this mean for, we asked each other the question, well, what does this game mean for Houston? What does this game mean for Boston? I told you, this game means a lot for Boston. They can't come out and dog it, and their starters have to come to play. If you get benched and you're a starter, remind you, the best starting 5 in the entire NBA, and this is not by a Celtics fan saying that. This is statistically, legitimately proven fact. This starting 5 is the best starting 5 in the NBA. You got benched on national TV, and you didn't play the entirety of a second half, and they needed to come out, and they did. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, specifically our player of the game, Jaylen Brown tonight, 21 of his 32 in the third quarter, just so efficient. He was getting it after defensively, few steals, a couple steals, 2 huge blocks on, I believe, Jabari Smith Jr. Really let him know, screened it, flexed it. I absolutely love it. Seamus, I really hate to leave you solo here, but there's kind of some important things that I have to go take care of right now. But listen, this was a huge bounce back win for the Boston Celtics, but they need to continue this, and they got a big road game against a division opponent.
And we're going to take a look at the lead tracker as Justin dips on out of here in a minute here. Justin, thank you for joining us tonight. Justin, definitely some off camera issues that he has to go deal with tonight. And Justin, we hope he will stay safe, be safe, and have a comfortable night, because he's definitely going to need some of our thoughts with him going forward. But he will be fine and on here moving forward for the next pregame, postgames for us here at Celtics Talk Weekly. And like I said, Justin, be safe tonight. And yeah, that's all I got to say in regards to Justin exiting the show here on Celtics Talk Weekly postgame live. Folks, so you look at the lead tracker, the Boston Celtics, they beat the Houston Rockets 145 to 113, 36-point lead. I kind of saw this and thought about this earlier. I'm pretty sure the team didn't do it on purpose, and this is just one of those numbers things, right? You just look at the numbers, symbolize the numbers. Well, the Celtics, their biggest lead tonight against Ime Udoka, right? Brown, Tatum, Al Horford still in the building, Robert Williams, Marcus Smart, the 2 other starters on Ime Udoka squad, no longer on the Celtics anymore. And I like that the Celtics, they put up their biggest lead of 36 tonight. A little bit of homage to Marcus Smart. I know they didn't do that on purpose, but just a little bit of symbolism there for the Celtics tonight. And here we go, everybody. It's just me on the post game. I swear I won't be this big. Let's get me in a better frame here. There we go. We're back. We're back to the solo post game format. If you guys go back last month, December, the Knicks game, there's a Magic game, Cavaliers game, Warriors game. There's another game in there as well. I did solo. And for any of you who joined me during that stretch, welcome back. We're solo. It's just me and you guys now. It's just me and you. Nobody else here. Rob, Ian, Justin, David, and Franco. They're all dealing with off-camera issues tonight. Not bad issues, that is. But they're of course out and about. But looking at this game for the Celtics and the Rockets, this was a game that the Celtics, I'm noticing here, got to hold up. We since we're running everything here now, there we go, folks. We got to change the background. Come on now. We can't let this professionality slide. But the Celtics in this game, they had to come out and win tonight. They simply had to come out and win, because if they don't win this game, okay, if the Celtics do not win the game tonight, they're 3-4 in their last 7. Okay, that's a raw statistic that can be somewhat explained through the Celtics losing in Oklahoma City competitively, the Celtics getting hosed in Indiana, and then the Celtics really being the victim of a bad schedule by the NBA, bad scheduling, that is, by the NBA. The Rockets are kind of a victim of that tonight as well, where they have to play a second night of a back-to-back on the road against one of the league's best teams. And those can be excuses. A lot of those losses can be excused, but regardless, the Celtics were still 3-3 heading into this game tonight, and they were going to be 3-4 if they lost in their last 7. And I thought the Celtics, still coming into tonight, were on a nice roll of good play. Now, there are some blemishes within the schedule, sure, but they're still on a roll of really good play, really good fundamental play on both ends of the floor, whether or not the numbers match up, of course. But tonight, regardless of whether or not they were on that roll, they had to come out and win, because if they don't, I mean, what's the narrative around this team? What exactly are people talking about surrounding this Celtics team? Because you look at the entire situation in the media. They don't care about the Celtics being good. Okay, the Boston media landscape right now is paying attention to which player the Patriots are going to draft, what's going to happen with the Patriots head coaching vacancy. The national media, they're focused on all the young teams. They're focused on the Orlando Magic, the Indiana Pacers, the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Minnesota Timberwolves, their stars, and also, of course, the Lakers. The Lakers are their number one team. Praise be, the national media, that is, the Knicks too in New York. But all of these other young teams are being paid attention to. All right. The Boston Celtics are a team not being paid attention to enough. They really aren't. They're the best team in the NBA by far. It's not even close. It's not even a debate. It's one of those years where we have a team so far out in front of everybody else that we can definitively say that that is the team to beat, even though they may not have won the title the year before, even reached the NBA Finals. The Phoenix Suns in 21-22, they won 64 games the entire year. They were the best squad that year. The Celtics made the finals. The Warriors won the finals. Phoenix Suns, of course, choked in the playoffs. Celtics, they still need to make a playoff run to solidify their legacy this season. But the Phoenix Suns were so far out in front of everybody else that you really didn't consider another team close to them. You may say at points in the season, Golden State did threaten them, but it was really the Phoenix Suns. They were the top team. The Celtics, yes, they're threatened by other teams like the Bucks, like the Nuggets, like the Timberwolves. We saw the other night on the Garden floor, the Minnesota Timberwolves almost beat the Celtics for a second time this year. We almost were 0-2 against the Minnesota Timberwolves. But what happened in that game? Celtics down 9 with 3:53 to go. What happens? Celtics come all the way back, steam all the way back into the game, tie the game, 111. They go into overtime, grab a 7-point lead in overtime, eventually winning the game with that. And this team is on a roll in the last month and a half. And the national media doesn't care because they've seen Brown and Tatum reach stardom. They've seen him go to the conference finals multiple times in the last, let's actually go through it. Since 16-17, Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum, because Jaylen Brown was on a conference finals team the year before Jason Tatum was even drafted. Those guys have been on a conference finals team, including Jaylen Brown. 17, 18, 20, 22, 23. 5 times, and they made the finals once. And of course, some of those teams were not primed to go to the finals. I know a lot of people say whatnot about those teams, like, oh, they couldn't get over the hump. Well, those teams weren't even supposed to be that far, into the schedule. So, right. But the Celtics and Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, they've been to the Eastern Conference Finals multiple times, and they've been on national TV through all these playoff runs. And I think people, from the national perspective and the national media, are just kind of tired of seeing the Celtics be good. They're tired of seeing the Celtics have success. And what's the reality about this situation is that a lot of other teams, they have their periods in which their young superstars go through times of losing. Anthony Edwards with the Minnesota Timberwolves, Tyrese Halliburton with the Kings and the Pacers. Look at Shea. Now, his first year with the Clippers was nice, but look at the years he sustained in Oklahoma City. The Orlando Magic, look at them the last half decade plus. All of these teams had to go through times in which they lost. The Atlanta Hawks, before I know they're falling out of relevancy now, but before they ascended into relevancy and making the conference finals, they needed to be bad for 3 years in a row, grabbing Trae Young, rebuilding their roster. Well, the Celtics, there's never really a period where they're bad, from the KG, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, Rajon Rondo era to the Jason Tatum era. There's one season they won 25 games. 1 year. It's, I believe, 13-14 was the year. Yes, 13-14 season. The Celtics won 25 games. That's Brad Stevens' first game, or first season, that is. Of course, he coached his first game that season. And that team is the only losing team the Celtics have seen in the last, ever since made the Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett trade. And since then, the national media, rightfully, not rightfully so, whatever your opinion may be, they're tired of seeing the Celtics win so much. And this team specifically, they're on another tier. They're on that tier with the KG, Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, Rajon Rondo Celtics, the big three Celtics from last era. We've had some pretty good squads here from 2017 to 2020. And then, of course, rebuilding what were the remnants of that squad, mostly Brown and Tatum reascending their careers. But none of those squads with Kyrie, Gordon, Marcus Morris, Terry Rozier, none of those squads reached the level on which this squad is currently at. The squad with Kristaps Porzingis, Jrue Holiday, Tatum, Brown, Horford, Derek White. The Celtics have an embarrassment of riches right now. And let's also throw this out as well. Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hauser, legitimate contributors off the bench. You're talking about an undrafted player in Sam Hauser in 2021 and a 26th overall pick in 2020 and Peyton Pritchard contributing off the Celtics bench right now. I know people will say whatever about Desmond Bane. I feel you guys. But Peyton Pritchard is still an impact player. And even in tonight's game against the Rockets, Peyton Pritchard put on quite a performance. He was 7 of 10 from the floor. He could have came away with player of the game last night, 2 nights ago, and tonight. 19 points for Peyton Pritchard tonight, 7 of 10 from the floor, and of course, 4 rebounds and 2 assists for Peyton Pritchard. And from three-point land, Peyton Pritchard was 50%, 3 of 6. He is contributing off the Celtics bench right now. Last game, I want to shout out Pritchard real quick because last game I was saying, oh yeah, well he's 2 of 9. He played 30 minutes. He had 21 points. What are we just going to get the leading scorer of the Celtics player of the game? Well, Peyton Pritchard standards, we don't typically see him score 20 points in a game. Tonight, this is a more important game than I feel than the Milwaukee Bucks game. The complexity of it. Scores 19 points tonight, 7 of 10. Was a big factor for most of the game in hitting shots off the bench for the Celtics and providing the spark plug amidst their time in which they were building the big lead in the third quarter and at the end or the beginning of the fourth quarter and at the end of the game. So Peyton Pritchard, big shout out tonight after Milwaukee. It was just kind of okay, you were the leading scorer on the Celtics. Well, in a blowout, that is. And well, tonight he comes out in a real game and he actually, Brown and Tatum, if they don't play the way they do, which we'll talk about Tatum in a little bit. We already talked about Brown with Justin. Those guys, if they don't play the way they do tonight, Peyton Pritchard walks away with player of the game. But my whole point here, I took a tangent on Peyton Pritchard. My entire point on the Celtics and them not being respected is really just the entirety of the team, who they have on the team, how they built the team over the years. This is not some kind of thrown together team. We have legitimate developed pieces on the team. Luke Cornett is developed in-house. He was an undrafted player who jumped around a little bit from the Knicks, was with the Bulls, playing with the Windy City Bulls, the Westchester Knicks in the G League, came to the Celtics, spent some time with the main Celtics. Now he's somewhat in the rotation. We look at Peyton Pritchard. Like I said, Sam Hauser, I already went through those guys and their accolades before being with the Celtics and now being with the Celtics, developing, being undrafted and the 26th overall pick. These guys are rotation players now. And I think there's something to be said about this entire squad, the talent in which they have, some of the development which has happened in Boston, and the historic numbers which the team is hitting too. I don't think any of this is being covered to the fullest of extent by the national media because this, folks, is an all-time team. It's an all-time Celtics team. 145 to 113 over the Houston Rockets tonight. I know the Houston Rockets, they're 4-13 on the road now, but Ime Udoka, I was really picturing that this game, coming into this specific one, I thought that the Celtics were going to have some trouble. They were going to have some trouble with Ime Udoka because we've never seen Brown and Tatum play against a former head coach. We've never seen Tatum play against Coach K. We've never seen Brown play against his former college or high school coaches. We've never seen any of this, right? We've never seen them play against Brad Stevens, Joe Mazzulla, their current head coach, none of this. And you'd have to think that these players playing against a former head coach, their former head coach knows a couple of tendencies about them and their games. You go through practice with them 82 games. Now I will disclaim this. Teams within the season don't practice that much. But when they do, training camp, end of the season, in the playoffs, when you have time going through film, being within that routine is what I'm trying to say with each other. head coaches tend to know some tendencies about players. They talk a lot. Players, it's not all about implementing a game plan, what a coach wants to do. Coaches have to work with players and know what a player's skill sets are and what players are ultimately comfortable with doing with and what they're not comfortable with doing with. And two, where they can develop and where they can be ascended to being comfortable in certain spots too. So coaches, they build quite a relationship with players most of the time in locker rooms. And if they don't, typically teams are in trouble. But Ime Udoka, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and the rest of the squad, and Al Horford, who was off, Derek White, too, he was with the squad for half. Ime was in-house. All of these guys, I would think that Ime does have a little bit more knowledge upon them than a lot of other teams around the league. Because simply what we saw in the Nets series, too. Ime and the Celtics against the Nets. Ime was with the Nets staff before that 2022 series, and we saw elements of that come out within that series and little details where the Celtics were just able to take advantage over the Nets, play a huge factor in that entire series, and was not all due to the connection of Ime Udoka, but it was pretty substantial, I would say. And tonight I was very surprised the Celtics were able to just dominate, really. I mean, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, this is one of those I should laugh performances because we're just covering these two all-time great players and other people around the league are going, well, they're not Jokic. They're not Giannis. They're not Embiid. Well, couldn't these players be playing next to each other, sacrificing with each other, and be at the same level in which, to the point, they wouldn't have Embiid level stats because of the usage, Giannis level stats because of the usage, Jokic level stats because of the usage, and ultimately, too, their role on the team. Their role on the team, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum's roles on the team and what they are relative towards each other. They're two versatile forwards, right? Who can score in isolation, get downhill, and hit the three ball every now and then, and are two prime defenders, two prime-time defenders. And I think they sacrifice with each other on this team a lot. And personally, around the league, I was just I think Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, they deserve more respect than they currently do receive. And in this game tonight, they completely dominated. I mean, they dominated in a fashion that only great players dominated. And Jason Tatum, he was really the first half catalyst. Jaylen Brown, he was the second half catalyst. And both of them were really just aggressive from the get-go. Jaylen Brown, we walked through his player of the game stat line: 32 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks in the night, and only 3 turnovers as well for JB. 11 of 15 and 4 of 6 from three-point land. 11 of 15 from the floor, that is. 6 of 10 from the free throw line. I want to see Jaylen Brown hit his free throws, okay? Jaylen Brown, he's 6 of 10 from the line tonight. Honestly, let's roll it out, folks. He's been the problem when it comes to Celtics free throw shooting for a minute now. And it's not necessarily him solely because other guys on the team have missed free throws. But if you're looking at a consistency chart, right, like who's often missing free throws, right? Who is a player who consistently takes free throws, needs to make free throws, and will need to make free throws in big moments down the line later in the season? Who is consistently missing right now? It's Jaylen Brown. A lot of other players who are missing might be bench guys, Luke Cornett, O'Shea Brissett added to our awful total the other night. And some of these guys won't need to be shooting free throws in the bigger moments. And I ultimately don't really worry about the entire team's free throw shooting if it's those guys shooting free throws, because they won't receive as much of an opportunity in the playoffs as some of our other high percentage free throw shooters as stars. But Tatum and Brown, I mean, come on, guys. 11 of 17 from the free throw line tonight. Jason Tatum's 5 of 7. He misses 2 free throws. Jaylen Brown misses 4 free throws. I'm going to harp on them specifically. They got to make their free throws. They're going to go to the line 17 times combined. If they're going to go to the line 17 times combined, we can't see them miss 6 free throws. I mean, that's just, if you want to be top tier star player, and I know I'm out here saying that they are, you got to hit your free throws. You just got to, because they're going to be the ones hitting free throws later on down the line in the playoffs, when these numbers are going to matter more than, say, tonight, where the Celtics shoot 19 of 25 from the free throw stripe, 76%. Well, it doesn't really matter that they missed 6 free throws tonight, because you see the final score on the bottom. Not even close. Okay, not even close, folks, at all. I mean, 43 fourth quarter points, and the Celtics run away with this one. But in a game like they played against the Indiana Pacers on, I believe that was the Monday game, they lose that game by 2. Okay, I was trying to find the margin in my head here. They lose that game by 2, and they missed 9 free throws. Folks, the Celtics missed 9 free throws on Monday against the Indiana Pacers. I mean, are you kidding me? They lost by 2. And we all sat here and we all bitched about, for 3 days, or the 2 days they were off afterwards, oh my goodness, this Jaylen Brown call, this is ridiculous. LeBron was tweeting about it. Well, guess what, folks? LeBron isn't tweeting if the Celtics just make 3 more free throws out of the 9 they missed. 9. I mean, it's absolutely mind-boggling that they're able to miss this many free throws and get away with it. But the final score is going to be this much of a margin. They can, but on some nights that Indiana win, or rather not win, I should say Indiana did win that game. That Indiana win, that Celtics loss, that's a game the Celtics can take at the end of the day entirely. Tyrese Halliburton gets hurt in that game. He's hurt. He doesn't play the second half. He got hurt in the second quarter. The Celtics led up a big third quarter run, did not play to their own strengths in that game whatsoever, and they missed 9 free throws. It's like, come on, what are we doing? What are we doing here? And that's, I don't know. Sometimes I nitpick the Celtics just a little bit and everything. Even on this postgame show, like we'll have something wrong in the ticker. And even earlier, I was like, oh, it's 40 of 99. We nitpick these little mistakes, but it's just all part of getting better. We're going to have these 1-2 point games later on in time. And when those happen, we can't see the Celtics missing 6 free throws like they did tonight out of 25 and shooting 76% as a team. And those 6 free throw misses not coming from the rest of the squad. They're coming from Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, who are getting to the line the most out of anybody. But I do nitpick the Celtics a lot and their free throw shooting and some of their play, like not their overall play style, but you know, some of the moments, right? Some of the moments. But tonight's win, I shouldn't be taking such a negative course on tonight's post game, because this was a great win. It was a great win. I'm nitpicking the free throw shooting right now. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, let's talk about their 3-point shooting. 8 of 13 from 3-point land. Brown and Tatum, this is what's really getting me excited about the Celtics, along with many other things. But Brown and Tatum recognizing and adapting to their games, because I think it's easy for players to play out of their play style in basketball. It just is. I mean, look, you go to your local YMCA, you got a bunch of centers who want to be point guards. You got a bunch of point guards who want to be centers. I mean, that's just how it works out. It's like who you aren't, you want to be. And in the NBA, sometimes we see it a lot. And Brown and Tatum, not saying they're necessarily a huge part of that, but saying on some nights they do want to take more 3-point attempts when they should be driving to the rim. They primarily, Brown and Tatum should be aggressively driving to the hole every single night. That is the primary source of their offense, or at least should be, because they can create so much off of that and demand respect out of defenders, which to the point where they're opening up 3-point opportunities for themselves and much better looks, rather than, say, forcing 3-point attempts off of the dribble. And I think Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, the awareness within their game of, we're not forcing these threes, we're taking them within rhythm, we're taking them when the defense now respects us, when we're driving to the hole, being aggressive, when we're putting the defense on their toes, when they're backing up off of us, giving us that extra inch, now we're going to go and attack from 3-point land. And also, too, other guys on the roster, Drew Holiday, Derek White, finding Brown and Tatum in their spots on the perimeter for catch and shoot opportunities ever, too. That's a big thing within their games, and taking the correct 3-point attempts on the night, because we can, Joe Mazzulla, he can sit here and say, yeah, we want to take 53 pointers. Guys, you don't want to take 53 pointers if they're all contested. You want to take 50 open 3-pointers. That's what that 2 years ago, that's really what, to me, happened with the Celtics overall. Outside of, reconstructing the rotation, adding Derek White, taking away Josh Richardson, Dennis Schroeder, making everything fit a lot better within the rotation 2 years ago with Ime Udoka. I thought the number one thing that opened up the entirety of that team was the team's ability to constantly create open looks for themselves. Because at the beginning of the year, they would take the same amount of attempts, same amount of spots, or the same spots. It's like, oh, you're not hitting at as high of a clip. Well, later on in the year, they were hitting at a higher clip. Why is that? They're creating better shots from themselves. Well, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, they're not, and the entire team too. They're not just chucking up 3-pointers. There are times and there are games, don't get me wrong. Minnesota game, we certainly saw in the third quarter and that fourth quarter. There are moments of pure chucking, okay? Even in the best game of the season for the Celtics, coming back and winning that one, there were pure moments of chucking. But for the most part, for what the Celtics had formed an identity of this season, I believe the chucking factor, it's going out the window. It's going more and more out the window. And when the Celtics can play to their style and play to their pace and find the open rhythm threes, which they want to take, that is when they're excelling. And tonight, I mean, it was all of that. It was really all of that for the Celtics. And I talked about it a little bit at the beginning of the post game, where the Celtics at 24 3-pointers tonight. The Houston Rockets, these back-to-back games, the NBA cannot. They need to do something about them. I mean, I understand them. You want to have teams play as many games as possible, put as many butts in seats as possible, but some of these games are just horrific. I mean, just from a betting perspective, I see it a lot. Back-to-back games, it's never a full strength team. I don't see in most scenarios are we seeing teams coming in full strength or really living up to their ability whatsoever. I mean, not really. I would say personally, you probably want to get more home teams on the second night of a back-to-back, right? Or make it to where you're playing 2 home games back-to-back, or you're playing in 2 cities that are relatively close to each other. But even then, that brings up the scenario like last night, Detroit and Boston. It's not a massive flight from Detroit to Boston. Yet the Rockets, they look the way they do tonight. They did come out with some punch, some energy. They actually punched the Celtics in the mouth a little bit early on. Said in the pregame show, everybody go check that out, by the way, that the Celtics need to come out with some energy. But it ended up being the Rockets tonight. They both came out pretty competitive. But that's what happens to a team on the second night of a back-to-back. One team's at home playing competitively. The crowd gets under them. It's a Saturday night, Garden crowd. You just know there's another element to that entire crowd. It was the other day, we were talking, they are the 6th man of the league. And once you get in front of that crowd and both teams are playing competitively, you played second night of you played the night before competitively in another city in front of different fans, got on a plane and traveled to another city. The sleep schedule is just there's not the rhythm, the sleep schedule, everything is just messed up for a team on the second night of a back-to-back. And I'm just tired of seeing these results, quite honestly, because the last 2 games, it feels like they were a little bit tainted for the Celtics one way or another. It kind of works out 50-50 for the team, because on one end, they were the team playing the second night of a back-to-back, and then the next game, they're a team playing a team on the second night of a back-to-back. But I still think these last 2 games, you don't put asterisks on them by any means whatsoever, but you look at them and go, okay, there were special circumstances for the Celtics, there's special circumstances for the Rockets, and I do think it takes away a little bit of an element that exists within the game. But that's only me from an entertainment standpoint. The NBA, like I said, they just want to put butts in seats. It doesn't really matter what 2 teams are playing out there, as long as they can get a game on the schedule at TD Garden. I mean, we could play Jordan Crawford and the Celtics from 10 years ago. Let's put them in uniforms. And the NBA would go, sure, if everybody bought tickets to the game. So I understand why the NBA doesn't necessarily care about the problem, but at the same time, It is part of their product. I do talk about the NBA's product a lot, where it's just like you got to sometimes pay more attention to some of the fringe elements in which you might be thinking you're fixing, but then you're just kind of ruining another element of the problem or the product, which is the other night I was talking about the reviews, just absolutely outrageous what the NBA has done with reviews down the stretch. But that's beside my point that I'm now on an elongated tangent on. But tonight's game between the Celtics and the Rockets, I think that we're going to see a much better game in Houston. I do think that. I think when the time comes, because we're meeting up with the Rockets again, not too far down the line from now, and I think that game is actually in about, I think it's in only like 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. Let me take a quick peek at the schedule here on ESPN.com. The Celtics will be facing the Rockets again, yes, Sunday, January 21st at 6 o'clock. Actually, no, 7 o'clock Eastern. And that game will be in Houston for the first game of a 3-game road trip. And the Celtics will be coming off a day's worth of rest after playing the Denver Nuggets at the Garden on Friday. So I do think the next Rockets game actually could potentially be bigger for the Celtics with both teams rested. Celtics coming off a big matchup against the Denver Nuggets. You don't want to turn that into a trap game. And the Rockets will be in their home facility, not traveling from another city the night before. So I do expect that game to be a little bit better. Tonight's game was just, at a certain point, it just wasn't competitive. And you do have a lot of fun as a Celtics fan watching the Celtics just absolutely dominate the Rockets. There is another element, though, that just, we thought these two teams would compete, and we didn't see much competitive nature out of the Rockets at a certain point, and it was really the 3-point barrage from the Celtics, the dead legs of the Rockets, and some of their players. Let's talk about some of their players tonight. The Houston Rockets and their team, led by our former coach Ime Udoka. Dillon Brooks, I thought he was actually going to be a big factor in tonight's game. I thought, well, first off, let me rephrase this here. X factors, right? I picked who did I pick for my X factor tonight for the Rockets? I don't even remember who I picked for the Rockets, but I was thinking of Dillon Brooks potentially being my X factor, right? No, I picked Fred VanVleet. We can talk about him too. Dillon Brooks I picked as my X factor tonight. Fred VanVleet I picked as my X factor. Dillon Brooks, I kind of almost changed to him because it was like, all right, he's the one Rocket that didn't play 40 minutes last night. He's their top minute getter. He's their top opportunity getter after Fred VanVleet, really. I mean, both of those guys really eat up most of the usage of their offense. Alperen Şengün taking up a large amount of it too. But those guys, one of the two, it's almost like Brown and Tatum playing a back-to-back and one of them not playing. You expect the other, say if Brown doesn't play last night, comes into tonight, you expect him to be a little bit more fresh than Tatum, right? Well, Dillon Brooks, I'm not saying that these guys are stars by any means and should be putting up star numbers, but 3 of 8 tonight, 12 points. His presence wasn't really felt outside of what was, it was like one dunk out there that, you really were like, oh, nice, Dillon Brooks. And then the rest of his performance just didn't really feel him out there. And that's why I want to play this team again in Houston in a couple of weeks and get a more competitive game out of these two teams, because I thought tonight some of what I believed, or me and Justin believed, that we're going to potentially play a factor in this game. Dillon Brooks not really playing as many minutes last night. Justin's X factor, though, I got to say, Cam Whitmore. Justin, he did his research. 7 of 13 from the floor for Cam Whitmore tonight. He led the Rockets in points, 22 points, 7 rebounds for Cam Whitmore, a steal and a block. He was 2 of 7 from 3 and 6 of 8 from the line. So going to the line 8 times as a 19-year-old. And Cam Whitmore is a pretty sizable wing. You never know what those type of players could really turn into if they develop the skill set. We see Brown and Tatum, what they're able to ascend to. Cam Whitmore, 27 minutes tonight, 19-year-old getting an opportunity on a young old Houston Rockets team. It's a very weird mix of players, way better than they were last season. But Cam Whitmore, Justin was right on point with who their X factor was going to be tonight. However, just wasn't quite enough. As for my X factor / almost X factor, 2 of 6 from Fred VanVleet and 3 of 8 from Dillon Brooks. Those are your 2 leaders. You want to see them put on a little more sizable performances, in my opinion. I know they're not star players. I know you don't expect them to put up, you're going to expect Dillon Brooks and Fred VanVleet to put up 30. I don't expect that at all. But coming in and only combining for what was 17 points between the two, and one of them didn't play last night. I mean, come on. Come on. Not the greatest of showings by the Houston Rockets top players. I will say this, though. Let me disclaim this about the Rockets. The Houston Rockets, giving a general overview of their team and the long scope of it. This Rockets team, I could say, Dillon Brooks didn't have that great of a game. Fred VanVleet, those are really their 2. I shouldn't say they're 2 best players. Alperen Sengun has established himself as their best player, but outside of him, it's VanVleet, Dillon Brooks. Those are the big free agency acquisitions. Not exactly star players, but they are ultimately players the Houston Rockets needed inside their building. The Houston Rockets, the last 3 seasons before this one, were running with players who, quite frankly, a lot of them did not belong on an NBA court. Sorry to say, I don't want to be rude about it, but it's just sometimes you have talent out there that doesn't live up with the rest of the talent in the league, whether it's IQ, whether it's actual physical ability. Something just doesn't stack up to the rest of the best. And the Rockets, they had no professionals on the roster. The only thing that made them a professional is that they put on that Houston Rocket jersey. Yet you see with this roster, this Houston Rockets squad, they have consummate professionals on the team. They have Dillon Brooks. They have Fred VanVleet. They signed Jeff Green, who was a big part of the Nuggets finals run last season. They signed Reggie Bullock. Those are 4 players right there, okay? 4 players within their rotation that play a legitimate role for them now. And for as big or as small as it may be, or on the bench as it may be, those professionals play a massive role with the Rockets that they did not play any of the 3 seasons. They weren't even around in Houston the 3 seasons before. Yet they're in the building now, and that's a huge reason as to why the Rockets are 19-19. Typically, you'd look at a 500 record and go, this team's kind of, middling, not that great. But the Rockets, they were in Pistons range the last 3 seasons, really. They had nothing going for them. They were in and out of trading for John Wall's contract and putting him on the bench and letting Jalen Green and Kevin Porter Jr. run the entire offense. It was a complete and utter mess when they should have really been trying to build towards what they're trying to build towards now, which is implementing a culture around their young guys of winning. A lot more winning going on this season. Tonight, unfortunately, the Celtics couldn't exactly further that for them and, in fact, prevented it. But overall, I like the direction of the Rockets. I love that they hired Ime Udoka. We saw what he was able to do in Boston with the Jays. He ascended them into further stardom 100%. It's why I think the Garden should have given him a standing ovation tonight. Some cheered, some booed. It was kind of a collective, which is exactly how we all felt when we saw the news of him being suspended the first time. It was kind of, okay. Joe Mazzulla. I love Joe, but that's exactly how it was. And it felt like that was the reaction at the Garden when Ime Udoka was introduced earlier in front of the fans. But he's implemented in Houston now, and I still think he's a very good head coach, very good tone setter for an entire organization, for an entire basketball team. Of course, he's from the coaching tree of Greg Popovich, and he's in Houston, not too far. I mean, I know Texas is pretty big, but not too far from San Antonio. And some of their young players, Amin Thompson, I think is going to be a guy who consistently develops. His brother in Detroit, those guys, we see twin brothers who look just like each other, Marcus Morris, Markieff Morris. They sometimes play very, very similar, and I think both of those players could end up having similar career paths, and I think that could be a legitimate player for the Rockets in the future for their rotation to be on the roster right now. Jabari Smith is still very young. He's only 20 years old, 21 years old, extremely young for his age. I think he can be a Brown or Tatum level of player. I'm not even I'm not kidding here. I don't know if Paulo Banchero, if he can get to Paulo's level necessarily, but I think he's going to be. I think he can be that level of player in the NBA. Alperen Şengün, he's established himself as an all-star this year. It's to me, if you win not rookie, sorry, player of the month, not rookie of the month, player of the month, Alperen Şengün. It was only 2 years ago he's winning rookies of the month. But if you, to me, win a player of the month in one of the first 3 months of the season, which is one of the first 3 months before the All-Star game in February, that should likely solidify you an all-star spot. How are you the best player in a conference for an entire month out of one of the first 3 months and you're on the all-star game? Well, Alperen Şengün, he took away player of the month in the Western Conference for December, and I truly think might have been player of the week. I might be going too far on this. I don't know if it was player of the month or player of the week. I'm kind of questioning, like, wait a minute, Alperen Şengün, I think I got to do my investigative research on this. But regardless, he has ascended himself into all-star status this season. And I believe that, I mean, he could honestly be, I don't know if he's not going to be Jokic because he doesn't have the size. Just doesn't. Jokic is a little bit bigger, a little more wide in the shoulders. But I think his IQ and the development of his game, he's only 21 years old. And the footwork we see and the skill, I mean, he has that silky, smooth touch around the rim that you just want to see out of a big man. We kind of compare and contrast. I love Keita, right? But if you watch Keita around the rim, you watch Alperen Şengün around the rim, it's like not even the same thing whatsoever. And I think the Rockets truly have a special player in him, potentially. And moving forward, I think he should be in the All-Star game tonight. Going through his numbers tonight, 8 of 17 from the floor, 19 points, 10 rebounds. So double-double on the night for Şengün. 3 assists and 4 steals. 4 steals for Alperen Şengün tonight. Highlights his IQ just a little bit. I know steals aren't really the end-all, be-all, and guys can get them in lucky occasions. But, okay, stat correction here. Not player of the month, player of the week. So I was questioning this. I'm like, did Alperen Şengün really win player of the month? I'm going, maybe he won player of the week. He did win player of the week for week 11 in the NBA. So still should be something that's put on his all-star resume. If he won player of the week for an entire week in the NBA, there's only going to be so many weeks leading up to the all-star game. I know that's not what they measure all-stars off of. It's fan votes for the starters, and then coaches pick the reserves. But if you just look at the entirety of what Şengün's done this entire season for the Rockets, I think that he deserves an all-star spot in my mind. And he's a bright spot for their future. He's a player I'm very, very high on. But him, Jabari Smith, Jalen Green, Amin Thompson. Jalen Green, I don't really know where I stand on him. I almost see like a Jordan Clarkson level of player in him. I really do. I don't know if he can even be up to that level of player, but quite honestly, I don't know if I see a star level player in him. I think at this point in time, we would see more of the star features coming out within his game in his third year. But I will say, this is his first year being on a legitimate squad and not being on a perpetually losing squad, giving the ball to Kevin Porter Jr. and a bunch of other guys who simply wouldn't be on a roster elsewhere. I think Jalen Green does have some more time to develop, and he does have some leeway because of how bad the Rockets were in their development during the first 3 years of his career. But this is typically the time you want to see a player ascend his game a little bit. And I think Jalen Green, you know, we're getting to some points where it's like, okay, we gotta see a little bit of something here and there. And so far, the special elements of his game just aren't necessarily apparent. The superstar elements aren't necessarily apparent, but I do think he does have a game that can fit into a rotation somewhere in the NBA. And well, the Rockets, I mean, they're still developing with him, but in time, say his final product as a player, I still think he could be somewhere around a Jordan Clarkson level of talent in my mind. But right now with this Houston Rockets team, he's going to have to develop next to some of these veterans, and I think it's good for him to be next to these guys. There's already takes going on out there going, oh, this Houston Rockets team, they're basically way too experienced and way too young. That's what's happened. They're 19-19 right now. They have way too experienced guys like Jeff Green, Dylan Brooks, Fred VanVleet, who are they are ready to compete or can compete on playoff rosters, in playoff rotations. But these other guys, Amin Thompson, Jalen Green, you look at Jabari Smith, now Alperen Şengün, he's actually ascending into somebody who is ready to compete, but he's with these young guys as well. But those other three names, Amin Thompson, Jabari Smith, and Jalen Green, all three of those guys are straight up developing, and they have to play real minutes for the Rockets. So you have on one hand, you have these guys who are, yes, they're veterans. They could actually add to a championship team. Then you have these other guys who are not ready at all. And I think what's good for those guys is that they get to play with those guys. And I don't see the argument. Some people emit the argument of, oh, these younger Rockets players have to be on a younger team and maybe go through a little bit more. No, we already saw it. The last couple of years, the Rockets, they tried to go super young. They tried to give the young players the opportunity. They kept the good young players around, and now they're going to have to develop with real NBA players in the clubhouse. And let's lay this out too. It's not just about being an NBA player on the court. It's also about being a professional off the court as well. So to have guys like Jeff Green, Reggie Bullock, Fred VanVleet, Dylan Brooks, professionals who've been in the league for multiple years around these young guys, that's not only valuable to their basketball game and the development in their game on court, but also as humans off the court and just managing everything that comes with being an NBA player in real life. So the Houston Rockets, I love the direction they've gone into with Ime Udoka taking over as head coach and signing all of these guys that people, even myself, okay, I'm going to wrap myself out here. Over the summer, I was looking at the Rockets going, what are y'all doing here with Fred VanVleet, Dylan Brooks? But I think once the roster, you look at it in its entirety, you look at what's happened to them this season, 19-19, where they're able to go. They're actually doing a lot better than I thought right now. They're, of course, on pace to be around a 40-win team. We'll see if they actually get there. I was thinking maybe 30-something wins. Even that would be an improvement for them from last year. And they're well on their way to it this season. And I'm glad that the Houston Rockets were able to turn it around because they're kind of an NBA marquee franchise a little bit. Hakeem Olajuwon and his squad, of course, in the 90s took 2 titles, and they were right in between the Bulls titles, right in there. So you have the whole 90s, you have only the Bulls, the Rockets, and then the Bulls again. I mean, so they are really an NBA marquee franchise, and it's never fun to see marquee franchises, even though as Celtics fans, we don't like the Lakers and we don't like the Knicks, and it's funny to see them lose. It's not fun to see teams be perpetually bad to where they walk into the Garden and we're just blowing them out and they have no future whatsoever. This game tonight, we blew them out, and in 2 weeks, I think this game's going to play to the competitiveness of the Houston Rockets, and it's not going to be a cakewalk in Houston whatsoever. So to have the talent Houston has nowadays, it's great to see for them and the city of Houston as a whole. I know I spent a lot of time on the Rockets on this post game, but do want to talk about their squad. And I love talking about the Celtics opponents because we don't get to talk about these teams on these lives at all. I mean, we always get in meetings about our post game shows, and we always throw out, oh, we're gonna do this NBA show. Honestly, guys, like, we want to come out with an NBA show for all y'all. We do. But right now, where we talk about every other opponent, it's right here on the post games. They come into the Garden, they come into Boston, we look at them, we examine them, we go through all their numbers, we see them play. This is where we get to talk about them. I love talking about other teams relative to the Celtics on post game and just basketball in general. I mean, come on. Game of basketball is so amazing. So amazing. But just recapping this game tonight for the Celtics a little bit. 24 made threes. at the Garden in the Celtics homecoming, really, to the Garden floor against the Houston Rockets, 145-113, the final score. The Celtics absolutely dominate this game in every manner whatsoever. And this Celtics team, folks, I'm going to continue my statements here. This is the best team in the NBA. Not even close. And I do believe we're going to win the finals this year. I see it. I see it with this team. Even this game tonight, I know it's not a game. People look at it and go, yeah, you should win this game. Right. We should win this game. But if we didn't, it would be an absolute disaster. And what did the Celtics do tonight? They came out with intensity. They looked fresh. They were looking to attack early. Defensively, too, I thought the Celtics were absolutely swarming all over the place. And you really I look at the beginning of games. I look at at what point are defenders picking up guys and how intense are they on the ball and how intense are they within their closeouts? Because you can really tell within that if a team is engaged early on in a game. And it can change later on in a game where a team maybe doesn't come out all that great, and then later on they're clicking. But most of the time you can tell from the first couple of minutes defensively how teams are engaging themselves defensively, what intensity they're bringing. If a team's actually coming to play tonight or not, that night, whatever night you're watching on. And the Celtics in this game tonight, I thought early on it was like, oh, we're here. We're here. I understand it was 14-12 Rockets, 18-14 Rockets, but I'm sitting here on pregame with Justin, and I'm seeing Drew get a deflection. I'm seeing Tatum get a deflection on Şengün and Jabari Smith, and Dylan Brooks, and he's getting called for bogus fouls. Jason Tatum was ejected in this game too. Just throwing this out there, and not a huge deal. Just ejected for. There were some bogus calls, I will say, throughout the game. Just ridiculous calls. Not going to get into them, but Tatum, all those plays at the beginning of the game, Brown driving aggressively to the rim, Tatum looking for his shot. The team, from this standpoint, I'm super impressed that they didn't come out and say, oh, this is a home game against the Rockets. Last game we didn't really play. Yeah, we should win this game. No, it was business. It was business. It was, we're coming out, we're coming to play, we're getting right back on track. And the Celtics, instead of being 3-4, oh no, what's happened in the last 7 games? It's not a conversation. They just blew out the Rockets. They're right back on track. They have Toronto on Monday, I believe. I think it's Monday, January 15th, 2 days from now. So a day's worth of rest. And then the Celtics have Toronto on their schedule. So I think the Celtics coming out and taking care of business tonight, just one of those stepping stones for the entire team. It really is. It's not a huge block or anything like that. It's not like, ooh, wow, the Celtics, they really did something tonight. That's 24-30. That's pretty impressive. But it's a necessary game the Celtics need to take, and one that if they didn't, you never know what the narrative around this team could be. And losing always can spiral into other elements in which are not foreseen when you are just simply winning, like the Celtics are right now. But we started this post game. Justin joined me. He, of course, had to evacuate his entire apartment complex, unfortunately, before we ended the show. And I want to say again, send your thoughts to Justin tonight, because he'll be fine. He's not going through anything severe. Like, he'll be fine. He'll be safe, but certainly an uncomfortable situation when you have to be evacuated due to elements of what happens in your apartment complex. But Justin joined me here earlier tonight. We will be doing pregame shows moving forward for the Celtics, and not the official Celtics. Let me disclaim that, not official Celtics here, but our own personal brands. We're doing it for the Celtics. We're covering the Celtics for you guys. And next game will be on pregame before the Toronto Raptor game. We'll also be on postgame as well after that. And we'll have to check on Justin's status for that game, his location, his geographic location and logistics. A little bit up in the air, I will say right now. But Justin, glad to have him back tonight. It's always great talking basketball with my guy, Justin Lowe, a.k.a. Celtics Rising. He was on the show earlier tonight. But as for this game, what I talked about, 145-113 win for the Celtics, I mean, that's pretty much all I got. tonight. We'll be on here a lot more moving forward. Like I said, we're doing the pregame show, so gives us a lot more room to talk about opponents before a game, put down a lot more film for everybody, a lot more content before a contest, and not just reactionary content for everybody. We'll get the pre and the post reaction. So we'll have a lot of that available for you guys moving forward. But thank you all for joining me here on the Celtics Talk Weekly post game tonight. I am your host, Seamus Zarlingo, and like I always say, go Celtics.